With the great wave of young people being terrorized in their sleep, a young monster needs to learn how to use his frightening appearance to make energy with human babies. Today we're recapping the first season of the series, Monsters at Work, from 2021. After a demonstration of his ability to scare children, Tyler Tuskmon proves that he is one of the best scarers in the world of monsters. His main goal is to join Monsters Inc. and help generate energy for the city of Monstropolis through the screams of children. That day, when he receives an envelope from Professor Knight, Tyler learns that he has been offered the job of his dreams, and right from the start he will be working as a scarer, one of the most senior positions at Monsters Inc. However, the company has recently undergone some changes and now the monsters will no longer scare children in order to obtain electricity. During a visit to Roz, Mike and Sully discover that the directors have given them the top job and will now take over from Waternoose, the company's former chairman. Now that Monsters Inc. has changed its approach to obtaining energy, Mike and Sully need to find monsters funny enough to make the kids laugh. During the selection process for comedians, Tyler arrives at the company's headquarters and discovers that new changes have been implemented. As the company is no longer hiring scarers, the young monster will have to take on another role. After meeting his new co-worker, Tyler is taken underground, where he will work alongside a team of mechanics. Frustrated, the young man realizes that all the years he spent in college to become a scary professional will be for nothing. To make matters worse, his new co-workers appear to be completely insane, so Tyler decides to get the hell out of there and throws his admission letter in the trash. He then decides to go to the laugh floor to try his luck and says he has been approved by Mrs. Flint to be part of the comedy team. However, when he enters a child's room, Tyler frightens the boy, who runs into Monsters Inc. headquarters. While trying to capture the boy, Tyler destroys countless laughter cylinders and causes a major disaster before managing to return the child to his room. After all the chaos he has caused, the young man apologizes for the damage and says that his superiors will never see him again. However, when the monster is about to leave, Sully recognizes him and reveals that it was he who recommended him for that job, as Tyler graduated top of his class. As a result, the monster is given a second chance to work for the company and Mike says that from the next day he will be teaching classes to help the Frights become professional comedians. However, until he learns to make children laugh, Tyler won't be able to go on missions and will have to work underground. As it is his first official day working with the MIFT agents, the young man receives a welcome ceremony prepared by Fritz, the floor supervisor. By crossing the gate, Tyler will be agreeing to become a MIFT affiliate for life and will never be able to change positions in the company again. So he decides to get out of there, but ends up being pushed by a conveyor belt and is saved by a general power failure. As there are few comedy monsters, Mike and his companions have to work twice as hard to produce enough energy to power the city and they become exhausted. During lunch, Mike has to give his first comedy lesson and takes an energy drink to get himself together. Meanwhile, Tyler tries to adapt to his temporary job, but Duncan is willing to do his best to make life difficult for the newcomer. During the laughter class, the monster is visited by his work colleagues and Mike invites them to join the class. After lunchtime, Mike continues his work as a comedian, but due to power cuts, he ends up getting stuck inside one of the doors. So the MIFT agents are called in to help and, thanks to their teamwork, they manage to generate enough energy for Mike to leave the room. After helping his colleagues carry out that rescue, Tyler realizes that being a mechanic isn't as bad as he thought and celebrates the success of the mission with the rest of the group. Just then, Mrs. Flint appears and informs them that Winchester has been asked to join the laugh floor because his participation in the comedy class has made the teacher realize that he is a very promising comedian. When he realizes that another MIFT member has been called up for his dream job, Tyler feels frustrated, but tries to cling on to the idea that he'll be in that job temporarily, as he'll soon be joining Winchester on the laugh floor. Meanwhile, Muka pays a visit to one of his favorite babies and makes funny faces to make her laugh. However, as he is a very clumsy monster, he ends up having an accident, which makes the girl laugh even more. The only problem is that Muka's sneeze damages the wall of the child's bedroom, which can lead to suspicion among the girl's parents. So, after going through the door, the monster makes a damaged room alert and the entire floor is emptied so that MIFT can repair the wall. After receiving the work order, Fritz orders Val and Tyler to do the job and the monster decides to take the opportunity to try and make the child laugh. However, the baby starts crying when she sees him and Val asks Mike to help her get the baby out of the room while the wall is being repaired. When the room is empty, Cutter and his team start the service and suddenly Duncan appears to supervise them. That afternoon, Mike and Sully decide to go to the Monstropolis Stadium to watch a baseball game, since their favorite team is playing. As he's babysitting, Mike has to take the baby with him and Snore ends up soiling her diapers in the middle of the game. After changing her, the monster returns to the stands, but the baby wakes up and starts crying. At this point, Mike ends up getting into an argument with one of the fans, because the man wouldn't stop shouting. At that moment, the monster ends up being hit by the baseballs and passes out, so Mike and Sully decide to leave before he wakes up. After fixing the wall, Tyler and Val prepare to leave the room, but discover that the door has been disabled when they come across Snore's closet. At that moment, they are almost caught by the child's parents, but they manage to hide and, when Cutter returns from lunch, he realizes that the door has been disabled. She immediately presses the button and manages to save her team. After the MIFT members leave the room, Mike returns the baby to her crib and realizes that, even though he only spent a short time with Snore, he has become attached to her. Although he says he doesn't like children, Mike gets on very well with human babies and knows that, deep down, he misses Boo. Now that he's in charge of the company, the green monster has new responsibilities and Rose reveals that he won't be able to take part in his long-awaited bowling tournament because he needs to approve and sign a pile of documents. When he finds out that Gary, his blue double, will be taking part in the competition, Mike is furious and decides to form a team to defeat his opponent. In an attempt to score points with his boss, Tyler decides to help him on this mission and convinces Fritz to make MIFT members available to form a bowling team. As he is the best player on the team, Tyler is chosen as captain and realizes that he will have a long journey to teach his friends to become professional bowlers, as they have no idea how to knock down those pins. Believing that Tyler's team is made up of experts, Mike decides to make a bet and tells Gary that the loser of the championship will have to do the other's job for a month. Despite having a terrible team, the young monster manages to advance in the tournament and reaches the grand final, where he will have to play Gary's team. Realizing that his coworker is in trouble, Duncan says he will help Tyler set up a team of professional athletes. However, in exchange for this, the monster has to sign a contract saying that he will never take Fritz's job, because Duncan's big dream is to become a supervisor and he doesn't want to have another competitor. Before the final duel, Tyler lies to his team saying that the tournament has been cancelled because he doesn't have the courage to reveal that he has decided to replace them. However, seconds before the game starts, Val and the others discover that they have been tricked by the team captain. When they realize that Tyler has betrayed his own team, the professional players decide to leave and the young man quits the tournament. However, before victory was handed to Gary, the members of MIFT decided to unite to help Tyler win the championship and chose to remain loyal to him, even after being betrayed by the captain. Under Tyler's command, his team manages to progress in the game and ends up drawing with Gary's team. In the end, both Mike and Gary lose the bet and have to continue doing their own jobs. After several months of working without any time off, Fritz decides to go on vacation and has to choose a temporary supervisor to take his place. When he turns the wheel, Val ends up being chosen for the job and Duncan is furious at missing out on yet another opportunity to become a supervisor. Seeing his coworker's frustration, Val decides to give him the job and Duncan promises to make his boss proud. After packing his bags, Fritz goes through a door that will take him directly to a deserted beach in the human world and Duncan wastes no time before he starts pestering his colleagues, especially Tyler. That afternoon, while emptying the laugh cylinders, Tyler finds an opportunity to take revenge and causes a minor accident to hit his supervisor. Immediately, Duncan decides to make amends, but ends up losing control of the cylinder and causes an even bigger accident, which knocks out the power to the entire city of Monstropolis. Minutes later, Argus Blinks arrives at Monsters Inc. headquarters to investigate what has happened. The inspector is famous for his rigidity at work and Sully knows that if he finds anything out of order, he will be able to close down the entire company. On seeing Argus, Val rushes to warn her friends about the investigator's arrival and Duncan asks for everyone's cooperation in hiding any evidence that they are involved in the power outage. Meanwhile, the inspector sends his orbs to start the investigation and, in this way, Argus manages to find out who is really responsible for the incident. As Duncan is the supervisor, he ends up being responsible for the work of the whole team and Argus says he will be fired. Just then, a cylinder that had been stuck in the ceiling falls on the monster's head and it faints. Seeing the octopus on the ground, Duncan asks for Tyler's help to get rid of it and throws Argus' body through the same door that Fritz used to take his vacation. The problem is that the orbs have managed to record everything that has happened and try to escape, but the team manages to capture them and put each one of them back in the case. 2 weeks later, the group needs to open the door again so that Fritz can return. In doing so, they come across Argus and, surprisingly, the octopus isn't furious with Duncan. Instead, he thanks the members of MIFT for allowing him to enjoy the best vacation of his life. Thanks to this, the inspector decides not to file any charges against Monsters Inc. and Duncan will no longer be fired. Now that Fritz is back, Duncan loses his role as temporary supervisor and becomes just an employee like his other colleagues. The next day, while trying to get a drink from the old soda machine, Tyler decides to follow the techniques taught by Val, but ends up destroying Vendy. The machine was considered to be a member of the team, as it had been underground for several years. So Fritz decides to hold a funeral in its honor. According to the monster, Vendy arrived at Monstros Inc. the same day he started working there. So, when he sees the old machine being replaced, Fritz begins to think that perhaps he too is too old to do his job and enters into an existential crisis. Meanwhile, Mike and Sully are informed that the company is going from bad to worse, as the laughter generated by the monsters is not being able to provide enough energy to power the entire city. As a result, the presidents will have to start cutting some staff and Fritz's team is also affected. However, Mike has an idea to avoid cutting staff and decides to make some improvements to the company so that everyone becomes more satisfied with their work. In this way, he believes that Monsters Inc.'s performance will rise and no one will need to be fired. That afternoon, a new drinks machine is installed in the basement and Fritz is very happy with the improvement, as he now has access to different flavors of soft drinks. However, during a dispute over a drink, Duncan and Tyler end up destroying the machine and have to fix it before Fritz notices. Duncan quickly changes a few parts and the fridge starts working again. Everything seems normal, until the supervisor decides to use it and the machine starts throwing drinks everywhere. In an attempt to fix his mistake, Duncan struggles to reach the socket and finally manages to turn the machine off, but ends up being dragged into it. To save his coworker, Tyler has to put his greatest skill on the line and destroy the drinks machine. Thanks to Mike's action to increase employee satisfaction at work, in a few hours the number of laughter cylinders doubles, so layoffs are no longer necessary. Unaware of this, Fritz reveals that he has made a decision and, instead of firing a member of his team, he chooses to leave his post. After all, just as Vendy was old and had to be replaced, Fritz believes he should retire too. After breaking the news to the rest of the team, the supervisor receives a call and, much to Duncan's chagrin, reveals that his retirement will be postponed as no further cuts will be necessary in the company. The next day, when the MIF team members arrive underground, Tyler decides to surprise them and reveals that he has repaired Vendy so that the machine can rejoin the team. For the first time, the young monster manages to fix something himself and makes his team proud. When summer arrives in Monstropolis, the high temperatures cause the demand for electricity to intensify and Mike has to go in search of new monsters to join his team of comedians. So he asks all the students from the comedy class to come to the laughter floor and says that now is the time for them to put their knowledge into practice. Among the apprentices, the one who comes first will become an official member of the comedy team. However, before the mission begins, Celia notices that the door track is faulty and Tyler goes underground to fix it. However, when he gets there, the monster knocks down several doors and ends up being dragged into the conveyor belt. After a long ride, the monster comes across an ancient door leading to the Himalayas and faints as he is thrown through. When she realizes that her friend is in trouble, Val immediately goes after him and has no idea that Tyler is now trapped in a cave with the Yeti. The truth is that this monster has been banished and its reputation has been completely destroyed in the world of monsters, so Tyler is afraid to see it. However, it doesn't take long before he realizes that Yeti is actually a friendly guy and, soon after, Val shows up. Seeing the door to the banishment open, the young woman decided to go in to look for her friend and, upon meeting the snow monster, began to wonder why he had been banished. When the pair return to Monsters Inc. headquarters, Yeti accompanies them and starts following Tyler everywhere. The problem is that if his superiors find out that he helped a monster escape banishment, he will also be banned. So Tyler enlists the help of his friends to send him back to the Himalayas, but Yeti decides to return on his own. After the banishment door is returned, Tyler feels bad, because the abominable snowman is one of the kindest monsters he has ever met. After investigating the real reason for the ban, Val discovers that Yeti tried to reveal the evil plans of the former director of Monsters Inc., but ended up getting caught. To prevent the Scream Extractor from being confiscated by the government, Waternoose banned it forever. After discovering the truth, Tyler gives up his chance to become an official member of the comic team and goes after Yeti. With Val's help, the young monster manages to bring him back and convinces Mike and Sully to suspend his banishment. Now, the abominable snowman is the official ice cream salesman for Monsters Inc. A few weeks later, Mike's students have the opportunity to take a new test that will give them the chance to join the comedy team. To become an official comedian, Tyler needs to make the mechanical doll smile, but this seems to be a completely impossible mission for him. After numerous reproaches, Mrs. Flint decides to tell the truth and says that the monster has no talent for humor. As a result, he will no longer be able to take part in the auditions and will have to find a new vocation. That day, a group of children visit the company to find out more about Monsters Inc. and Talia, Flint's daughter, is assigned to go underground with the other children under the supervision of the MIFT team. When he finds out that he will be spending the whole day with Mrs. Flint's daughter, Tyler decides that he must make her laugh at any cost, so that the girl can convince her mother to give him another chance. However, when one of the mini-monsters disappears, the MIFT team must unite to rescue it and everyone gets on the doorstep. The original plan was to split up to find the child and Tyler managed to rescue him before the little one was sent to the crusher. Now their next mission is to return to the cart, since Talia has been left alone in the vehicle and doesn't know how to drive it. After accomplishing his goal, Tyler returns the child to Smitty and Needleman and then returns underground. By now, he is feeling frustrated, as all his attempts to make Talia laugh have been a great failure. When she hears Tyler talking badly about her mother, Talia says she'll pass the message on to her and walks to reception. The newcomer quickly goes after the girl and ends up knocking over a donut stand. As they witness the accident, the children around them start to smile, including Talia. After that, the little girl decides to make up with Tyler and, at the end of the day, tells her mother that she found that MIFT monster very funny. Now that he has no chance of becoming a comedian, Tyler struggles to come to terms with the fact that he will be a mechanic for the rest of his life. So he decides to help the team pay tribute to David, a former MIFT member who perished in an accident at work. To this day, Cutter keeps a tuft of his former colleague's hair as a souvenir, and while Fritz and the rest of the team are at the barbershop, Tyler decides to do all the work himself. Just then, Roto, Duncan's pet, manages to escape and devours David's tuft of hair. The creature then runs away and Tyler chases after it. However, during the escape, Roto ends up being sucked into the pipes that connect the underground to the company's other departments and the young mechanic must find him before his friends find out. In the meantime, the newcomer tries to take a lock of Rose's hair so that no one will notice what has happened, but the secretary threatens to call security and he leaves. While running around the company headquarters, Tyler meets Val, who invites him to lunch with the team. Over lunch, the monster asks where David's lock of hair was found and Duncan reveals that they found it in the bee crusher, because that's where his former colleague did his last job. Since the accident, this equipment has been completely shut down, so Tyler decides to go there to try and find a new wick. The young man easily manages to find the tuft of hair, but ends up activating the machinery by accident and is sent to the shredder via the conveyor belt. Luckily, when he throws his helmet at the crusher, it bounces off and hits the lever, disabling the machinery. At that moment, Tyler manages to capture Roto and takes him back to his cage. Rose then appears and gives him a lock of her hair, as she has decided to help that young man keep his job. However, when the team returns from lunch, Roto spits on David's hair and the rookie ends up having to admit that he changed the lock. Instead of being upset with Tyler, his friends show him compassion, as the rookie has risked his life to try and make amends for his mistake. At that moment, Cutter reveals that she has a container full of David's hair and replaces the fake lock with a real one. After numerous power outages in the town of Monstropolis, the regulatory agency sends Roz, Rose's sister, to inform her that the town's power will now be supplied by Fear Co. As Monsters Inc. is unable to provide the energy needed to supply the city, the responsibility will now pass to the competing company, which continues to use traditional methods to obtain energy. The only way to prevent children from continuing to be frightened by monsters is to generate enough energy in a single day to power the entire city. If Mike and Sully are able to do this, Monsters Inc. will remain in charge and the energy of fright will be replaced once and for all by the energy of laughter. That afternoon, Mrs. Flint summons Tyler to the simulation room and tells him that he has just been given a place on the laughter floor because he was able to make Talia smile, which is extremely rare. According to Mike, if the newcomer is able to help the comedy team beat the day's laughter target, he will have a great chance of being hired. Before going to the laughing floor, Tyler is given a farewell party by his friends and he realizes that he wants to stay with them at MIFT. However, to help Monsters Inc. beat the energy target, the young monster decides to join the comic team for a day and Val is there to encourage him. Despite not being able to fill the cylinder, Tyler manages to elicit a small laugh, which is already a breakthrough for him. When he leaves the girls' room, he comes across the other members of MIFT and, with their support, manages to get more and more laughs from the children. After an intense afternoon of hard work, the comic team beats the target set by Roz and manages to save the company. Thanks to Tyler's contribution, Monsters Inc. remains the largest energy company in Monstropolis, so Mike decides to make him an official member of his comedy team. Upon hearing this, the newcomer feels divided, because part of him still wants to remain part of MIFT. However, his friends know that the monster's biggest dream was to be promoted and they encourage him to take the new job. The next day, when he arrives at the laugh floor for his first official day of work, Tyler discovers that Val has also been transferred and will now be his assistant. In the end, the two best friends will be able to continue working together. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.